you know he's on top. Million subs, he never gonna flop. Out of Chicago, where the streets don't sleep. Betting on games, making cash real deep. Crystal ball for sports, he knows the lines. He's a sports aficionado, the money he finds. From football to basketball, he's always on point. Predicting winners never disappoints. He's got that hustle, that Chicago vibe. Making moves on the streets, cash on the side. With E, you know it's always a bet. He's the king of the game, never forget.
Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports show for August 27th. How's everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today. My boy Wade is coming on. Him and I are going to talk about the NFC East, do a team-by-team preview, share which bets we're looking to make this year for the East. I am going to be telling you why you need to target Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. And let's see what Gino has a cooking for us with his horse racing by the day from Kentucky Downs.
Our play this week is going to come at Kentucky Downs. Their short meet starts up this week, and they have a big day on Saturday. It's also Pacific Classic Day at Del Mar, closing weekend over at Saratoga. A lot of big racing. Get to drf.com for anything you need, past performances, any help with playing the races. Race number 1 at Kentucky on Saturday. I like the 2 in here, Smartest. This filly debuted on July the 26th over at Colonial, and she was a fine second that day. They just went really slow early on, and she was just too far back to make up a whole lot of ground in that particular field. Flavian Pratt jumps aboard. He's a very aggressive rider. He just does a good job of putting horses in the race early on. I think she's drawn down the inside. I wouldn't be shocked to just see her more forwardly placed in here. You can look at her dam. So her mother actually won in her second career start. This will be the second start for the 2 Smartest. And her mom, Smart Emma, was good going along on the grass. Also, you could see, and just kind of better as a horse going longer and just better as a horse on the grass. So I'm expecting Smart Emma to show that blood is there with Smartest, the number 2, and probably some of those same things that you pass on. That's kind of what you figure from the pedigree when you look at horses' sires, and in particular their dams. A lot of times you'll see those similarities. So the number 2 Smartest, 6-1 on the morning line. If we can get anything 7-2 or above, so 3.5-1 or above, that's my line, and anything around there should be good. So best of luck to everyone playing the races. We'll be back here each and every week. Good luck to all of you. Good luck, Eric, with all your plays this week.
Make sure to give my boy Gino a follow at It's Me, Gino B. I will be on his podcast later in the week talking some fantasy football, giving some insights about players I'm going to be looking to target and fade going into this year. Speaking of fantasy football, let's shift our attention over to the fantasy football spotlight. The player that is in this week's fantasy football spotlight is Terry McLaurin. McLaurin has an ADP of 72, wide receiver 32. If I were to tell you that McLaurin has had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, you wouldn't believe me. And the reason that he finished only as RB38 last year was he only had 4 TDs. He's obviously due for some positive touchdown regression. Also, since entering the league, he's averaging 121.8 targets, 75.6 receptions, and 1,056.6 yards a season. During that time, the best quarterback he had was Alex Smith. This is going to be the best quarterback McLaurin has played with since coming into the league. And the one thing that Daniels does that I really think McLaurin's going to flourish in is Daniels throws it up to the outside. We saw what Ayuk did in Arizona State, what Neighbors did at LSU. He throws it to the outside to let his wide receiver make plays. Another stat that really stood out to me, McLaurin had a 16.7 inaccurate target rate. What does that mean? Balls were thrown off target to him last year with Sam Howell. Jaden Daniels is a more accurate passer, so he's going to get better balls thrown his way. I really don't think people realize how elite of hand skills McLaurin has. Because of Daniels' history of throwing it up to the X wide receiver, the production year after year that we get from Terry McLaurin, and that we can get him in the 6th round, that is why we are targeting Terry McLaurin this year in fantasy football, and that is why he is in the Fantasy Football Spotlight. Now let's bring on this week's guest, my boy Wade from Wade's Bets. Wade, how you doing today, my man?
How's it going, man? Glad to be here.
It's going, dude. We had a question. Will this White Sox game be played? It's been hot as hell here in Chicago. It has been so hot. And just out of the blue, we had one of the nastiest thunderstorms I have been in a while. We had hail. It felt like people were throwing rocks at my place. It was nasty. And right now that's hitting the south side. I'm on the north side. My guess is that game probably will not be played. My street is actually still flooded. So my guess is no White Sox today. What's left down in Indy, man? How's it down in Indy, buddy?
It's going, man. We're not getting any rain down here, so I'm not complaining. But it's been really hot, very muggy. But
it's been brutal, absolutely brutal. U.S. Open's going on. I know you like a little tennis. You've been watching a little tennis.
Of course.
See, I hate betting tennis, and I'm gonna tell you why. It frustrates the living shit out of me. So, example one. I had Riley Opelka plus 200 in his first round match. He's up 5-3, like 40-15. Just complete melt.
He was cruising. He completely melted.
Just completely melted. And then what was the other one? I hit my boy Giffen today. Dude's a monster. Sure. I took the kid Forbes. Kid's going to Michigan State, won the 18 and unders. I just took him at plus 360 to win a set. Serving at 5-4, 30 love, 5-4, 40, 30, 2 unforced errors. But, part of the game. Part of the game. Did hit Beautiful. My girl.
Yeah, it's
I hit my girl Jovic. My girl Jovic hit me a nice little plus 360, so I can't complain.
Very nice.
Can't complain about that. But we're not here to talk about the U.S. Open. We're actually here to talk some NFC East. We already have some questions. NAA86, in your opinion, is Jaden Daniels the real deal, or is he just another bust quarterback for the Commanders?
I think he's going to be pretty good, man.
I've seen
a little bit.
I think he's going to be pretty good, but I think it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, he's definitely going to struggle year one. Absolutely.
I think he's going to flourish in the Kingsbury system. In year two, offensive line, there's a couple questions, but I think he's going to be pretty good toward the end of it. This one is a pretty good one from RG. Will Sirianni be fired if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl?
I think if they make the playoffs, he won't be, but he's definitely the number one hot seat coach in the league. Hands down.
I think they need to at least make it to the championship game. I mean, with Belichick and Vrabel just kind of sitting out there.
Yeah.
I think they got to make a little bit of a run to do it. If they just go there and they just make the playoffs, I think he's out. I honestly think he's out, and I think they look to pivot to one of those guys. Speaking, oh geez, dude, I'm here to listen about the NFL, not U.S. Open. Commanders are a sleeper this year. Let's make some. So I had the Brewers first five, and the Giants did hit a homer in the top of the fifth. But that's part of the game. I think that is it for all the questions right now. So let's jump right into it. The first team we're going to talk about is the Washington Commanders. All these odds are via DraftKings. Super Bowl, they're 120-1 to win it, 60-1 to win the NFC, 9-1 to win the East. Make the playoffs, yes, plus 260, no, minus 340, over under 6.5. What say you about the Washington Commanders, my friend?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, I kind of like all the offseason additions that they made. I think it really starts at the top with Josh Harris with the new ownership group. They kind of cleaned house. I like the Dan Quinn move. I don't think he's going to be their long-term guy, but I think he's a pretty good guy to come in and at least build a culture to start with, and they can probably build off that. I think with Daniels, they're probably going to want maybe a more high-powered, offensive-minded head coach rather than him. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean, defense really does win games. Obviously, I'm really big on Jaden Daniels. I think that was probably one of the better draft picks. I like him better than Caleb Williams. There are other off-season additions that they did: Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz. They added edge Clelin Ferrell and Dante Fowler Jr. And they actually brought in why is his name dropping my mind right now? Bobby Wagner, linebacker. So even if he doesn't impact a lot, I think he'll have a big impact on the team and in the locker room. So they brought in some pretty good veterans to surround a young quarterback, veteran coach. So I'm kind of all in on them. I don't think they're going to do anything this year. And it's tough to decide between them and the Giants who's going to finish last in that division. But probably Commanders are just going to finish last. I think Jaden Daniels is going to have his struggles. They're going to struggle on offense a little bit. But do you want me to give my bet now, or you want to wait till later on that one?
No. This is your time, man.
Yeah, I took Jaden Daniels to have the most passing yards for rookie passing yards on DraftKings. It was plus 190. I just look at it last year. I know they've had a switch in coaching. Obviously, Howell led the league last year in passing attempts. I think Daniels can be close to something like that. I don't know if he'll lead the league this year because I do think they'll try to approach the run a little bit more. But, as you said, Lauren, I think they have some really good weapons on the outside. I think they're going to use that. He's going to run a little bit. And I just think they're going to be playing from down a lot, and they're probably going to be forced to pass. And that's what's one way to build experience, is just let your guy go out there and work through the playbook and make passes. So I think at the end of the day, with the Bears, I think they're going to approach the run a lot. They did last year. Why would they abandon that? And also, I just think Williams is a really bad passer. He doesn't progress well. I think he's going to miss a lot of passes. He's obviously going to make a lot of big plays too. But I think when it comes down to it, the Bears are going to lean on the run, and he's going to run some too. And I just think if you break it down, I think Jaden Daniels is probably going to pass a little bit more over time. It's really crazy to say that because the Bears' weapons on the outside are insane. But I'm just not that high on Williams, man. So I'm going to back Daniels in that play.
I like it. I like that play a lot. Daniels, he's obviously going to be the starter. The question is, how is Kingsbury going to use him? This is the interesting. Murray was in the shotgun 90% of the time when he played for Kingsbury. But a recent study came out and showed that young quarterbacks actually perform better under center and early downs. Kingsbury is a very analytical coach. Is he going to see this, and is he going to switch the way he does? Is he going to put Daniels more under center? I think they're obviously going to use RPOs because of his speed, and this is going to help B-Rob in the running game. Commanders did make some offensive line improvements with the additions they made in the free agency, but their offensive line was so bad, it only makes it a middle of the road. I don't think this is an elite offensive line yet. They're actually going to be using a zone running scheme. This is better for Brian Robinson, who averaged 4.3 yards a carry last year on zone runs. They brought in Eckler. Now, what I would do if I was Kingsbury is I would just use Eckler as the pass catching back. I would not use him as the goal line back or the early down back, but I don't know if that's what Kingsbury is going to do. With the questions of how much Eckler is going to be used in the early down work, I really don't want anything to do with the running backs in terms of fantasy or in props. As I mentioned in the fantasy football spotlight, I love Scary Carey. I think he's in line for a huge season. But with them trading Dotson to the Eagles, this tells me that there's going to be another move on the horizon. Maybe they're bringing someone in who got cut. Maybe they're pulling the trigger on Ayuk. If that's the case, his receiving prop number is going to drop. We can get it a little bit better. And I don't really feel anyone's rushing to the book right now to bet Terry McLaurin rushing prop over right now. So I feel the number's just going to stay stationary where it is. Defensively, Quinn, one of the better coaches in the league. He's going to do anything from having a 3 to a 5-man front, show multiple coverages in the back four. From what I'm reading and hearing, they're going to move Allen around. They'll have Payne and their rookie Newton, who they drafted from Illinois, lock up the middle, have Fowler, who you mentioned, and Ferrier rotating around on the outsides, being the opposite pass rusher. I really feel that this defensive line could be one of the better ones in the league. Quinn did make a good hire with Witt in the back four. For those who don't know who Witt is, he's one of the best defensive back coaches in the NFL. Commanders' defensive backfield was awful. For those that have been around me for a while, especially last year, we targeted them. We looked to target in DFS. We made some money, also did receiving props. I think that's going to be done this year with what Witt's going to be able to do later on. Early in the season, I will look to target him. This is a team I want to get involved in next year. I think they're going to make some improvements on the O-line. I think the defensive line will get better. I need the DBs to get a little better. I need one more year from Daniels. So I'm not doing anything with them this year. I'm just kind of sitting back and watching the whole thing. Let's move on to Big Blue Nation, buddy. Let's move on to the Giants. 150-1 to win the Super Bowl. NFC 70-1. The East 20-1 to make the playoffs. Yes, plus 400. No, minus 550. Over under 6.5. What say you about Big Blue Nation?
Yeah, man, I'm not really too high on this team, honestly. I really don't have too much to say. I do think they might have one of the better defensive fronts in the NFC East. I really like the addition of Brian Burns. He's absolutely a monster. They also brought in Jalen Mills on the back end as well. So I know they're looking to improve their defense a little bit, which is what they really needed to do. And then they brought in Malik Natter. Obviously, I don't really need to talk on him too much. He's I don't know. Rookie wide receivers are they're hard to predict what they're going to do. I think he'll probably have a pretty good year, but that all depends on his quarterback, right? And I'm not very high on Daniels, so I'm not really sure what Daniel Jones is going to do here. I don't know. Just looking at it, I'm not that high on the Cowboys defense this year either. So maybe the Giants can pull off some surprising wins in the division, but I really got nothing on this team, man. I think Jones is probably going to be on his last year. They'll probably looking to draft a quarterback or make a veteran move next year. Maybe they'll bring Kirk Cousins in. Falcons are going to want to bring Penix in.
Here's the thing, though. We're going to see this a lot. In 2 years, who's the quarterback that's going to be number one drafted? Archie Manning.
Sure.
So we're going to see a lot of the teams. I think the Giants run into this.
Yeah.
Teams that, look to free up some cap space, bring in like a Jacoby Brissett, someone like that as a bridge gap, tank, try to get the first pick, and then roll out with Arch Manning. I really feel that is what the Giants are. The Giants are kind of in a holding pattern right now.
That is that's a perfect analysis, actually.
They had one of the worst offensive line, blah, blah, blah. They had one of the worst offensive lines last year in the NFL, and they did not use a single draft pick, not a single one, on an offensive lineman. How do you just not take a flyer on someone, even if it is in like the 5th, 6th, 4th round? Blows my mind. Thomas was great last year. He really took that step forward. Neal, who was this can't-miss prospect from Alabama, was the worst right tackle in the NFL last year. They used an insanely high pick on JMS. He was one of the worst centers last year in the NFL. They also have their second offensive line coach in 2 years. And you have a quarterback who's coming back from an injury, and he only played 4 games last year. Football's won in the trenches, and that's not a good start to this breakdown that I'm going to be giving you about the Giants. DeBoll, look, he tries to make life easier for Jones. Runs a ton of RPOs, that's looking to freeze the middle of the field, buy him some extra time. All the wide receivers, they all run routes back to him and try to line up for some stuff after the catch. A lot of stuff out of the shotgun, and that was one of the big issues because Barkley likes to have stuff out of the traditional under center formation. And that was one of the reasons I heard Barkley didn't want to come back, because what Barkley likes to do, DeBoll doesn't like to do, and there's a little bit of conflict there. They have Gray from Oklahoma, who they drafted last year. They signed Singletary from the Texans, who's coming off the most usage he's ever had in the league, running behind a bad offensive line. So I think that's going to be a nightmare. And they drafted Tracy from Purdue, but he played wide receiver in college. So this running back group is going to be a complete disaster. And it brings me back to, seriously, what the hell is the general manager of the Giants doing? The success of this team depends on Jones. We forget the success he had in this first year of the offense. The Giants drafted, as you mentioned, Neighbors. I think he's going to be the Diggs in this offense. He's not going to put up those type numbers that Diggs has put up in the DeBoer offense, but I think he's going to have over 1,000 yards receiving, 90 receptions. So the bet I did with them is I took Neighbors over 875.5 yards receiving. I think this wide receiver group is better than people realize. You have Hyatt, who won the Receiver of the Year award in college, can more than a field stretcher. He can run all the routes in the route tree. You have Wendell Robinson, who's Curtis Samuel light, and you have old man Allen Robinson. I think if the line can give Jones time, which is obviously a big if, this passing attack could be fun. You mentioned their defensive line. You look, Burns, Phillips, Lawrence, and they have Thibodeau rushing. Could be one of the better ones in the league, going to be stout to run against. Back four is awful. They lost Xavier McKinney, who was kind of like the ringleader there. I think teams are going to be able to pass on him. So I'm going to look to target that. But in terms of future bets, I'm only taking Neighbors here. Neighbors. God, I can't even talk today, dude. This rain really took it out of me, to have over 875.5 yards receiving. And that's the only one I got, my friend.
I like that, actually. It's a good look.
Sports Facts, DeBoer, first coach to be fired is my bet. Sports Facts, let me know what odds you got on that, my man. If I had a bet on that, I mean, obviously McCarthy probably makes the most sense off the top of my head, but he's got an easy schedule. We talked about this last week. One of the ones that I think could be sneaky is Kevin Stefanski. The Browns brought in Vrabel. If the Browns do hit a little slump, I think we're going to hear some whispers about Vrabel taking over.
Yeah.
Let's shift over to the Eagles. Super Bowl 14-1, NFC 6-1, NFC East -125 to make the playoffs. Yes, -250. No, +200. Over under 10.5. What say you, my friend, about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, man, they're actually my pick to win the division. I actually like the moves they made, especially on defense. Their first two draft picks were made on Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I'm not sure if he's going to play much or not, where he's going to fit in, how they're going to fit him in. But then they also spent a lot of money on edge Bryce Huff, brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and then they brought a linebacker, Devin White from Tampa Bay, who I think is I think he's still got some stuff left in the tank. Offensively, they obviously brought in Saquon Barkley, who was probably one of the bigger signings of the offseason. They also brought an offensive tackle, Mekhi Becton. We'll see how he fares in their offensive trenches. The one big question mark, I think, for them is how to replace Jason Kelce. They drafted a few guys, and then obviously I think they're looking at Barkley to kind of help with that, offset that. He can find small holes, and he can also catch in the run, the passing game. I really like that they brought in defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. I think he can probably instill a new mindset on their defense, which is kind of what let them down last year. They actually had one of the worst linebacking groups in the league last year, and they didn't really do much to improve that. So they're going to have to rely on White to come in and do some pretty big stuff. But I think if he can make some pretty big plays, hang around all season, not get injured, I think they've got a pretty good chance here with their offensive firepower to fight it out with the Cowboys to win the division. That's not the official bet I took. Actually, I ended up sprinkling a little bit on Jalen Hurts to win MVP at plus 1,600. He was second 2 years ago to Patrick Mahomes, and if they can get their offense back to where he's throwing less interceptions and has a similar numbers to where he was 2 years ago, I don't see why he's not going to be up there in the top 3, 4, 5, especially if the Eagles have to finish well. But if they finish well in the division, I think he might have a chance to be up there with tossing his name in the hat. So
I disagree with you, my friend, here. When we look at the Bears defense was elite under Fangio. He got that head coaching job in Denver, and it was the offense that just couldn't get it done. And then from what I hear that was going on in Miami, the older guys just weren't buying in. Fangio's a tough, old school guy that's going to run you into the ground. Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, those guys just didn't want it. It's always the year 2 bump with Fangio. I think Fangio is a absolute great hire. You hit the nail in the head. And Cool Kev, what is up, my friend? Appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, sure.
$1 million question. How's the offensive line going to look with no Kelsey?
I know.
Jurgen was drafted to be his replacement. He's going to slide over from the right guard. That means Steen will start at right with the loss of Kelsey. Does this mean no tush push? Are we going to see the tush push completely eliminated? How is it going to affect the rest of the offensive line? Also, we need to face it. Johnson is a year older. And, we were talking off air. Wade thinks I'm like 58 years old, but Father Time is undefeated. You mentioned they added Becton to give a little depth. He's not been able to stay healthy. The Eagles last season, 6th most rushing attempts in 2022, 3rd most rushing attempts in 2021, 2nd most rushing attempt. This team needs to get back to rushing the ball.
Yep.
They brought in Barkley to be the lone lead back. He obviously needs to stay healthy. Already words coming out. He's a little bit banged up. Moore was brought in as the OC, and I think this is a great move. What Moore is known for is stretching the field. This is going to open up more running lanes for Saquon Barkley to produce. And he needs to get Hurts back. More RPOs, more deep dropbacks, more deep throws. Hurts isn't a guy that likes to do 3 steps plan and pass. He likes to do 5-step drops, plant the back foot and fire it. He's also one of the better deep throw throwers in the league. I feel this is the first time I can look at the Eagles offense and say this is the offense that fits Hurts the best. They're one of the most analytical teams in the league. They have a department that gives all the data to Sirianni, who passes it down to the coaches. The offense is going to look to throw the ball more. I think we're going to see this offense get to some heights we haven't seen before. I know people are trying to make a thing out of the Sirianni and Hurts situation. Hurts came out, said Sirianni didn't know what he was talking about. To me, this screams Hurts is upset that Johnson, who is the OC, who he's had a relationship with since his days at high school, he was upset he got fired. I think Brown's going to have a huge season. He had 106 receptions last season, but no explosive plays, with him having a 43% first read rate. I think we're going to see a huge number of explosive plays, and I think we're going to see him get more yardage. In terms of Smith, look, 16 games, he's had over 15 PPR points. That's just great consistency, a great floor for a number 2 wide receiver on your fantasy teams. But look, that's what he is. You cannot have a successful fantasy football team and Devontae Smith be your number 1. Hired Fangio, in my mind, great pickup. Will rush for the majority of the time. Does a great job disguising coverage. He also came up with the 6-1 tilt, which is when you put 6 people in against running teams in the box. He doesn't like to blitz. My worry is they don't have Reddick now. Are they going to be able to create that natural pass rush? Back 4 was a nightmare last year. You hit the nail on the head. Brought in Gardner Johnson, who's one of the better safeties. I think that's a huge pickup for them. They drafted Dejon and Mitchell. I think that's going to be a greatly improved secondary. I think we're going to see a huge upgrade there. I love Moore for the offense of the Eagles. I think they have the weapons to succeed. I think that this team has all the weapons. I think their defense got better. I think their offense got better. I think they got an upgrade in coaching. I think we're going to see Hurts have something to prove here. They brought in Barkley, added another weapon. They just added Dotson, a good wide receiver 3. I took the Eagles 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I think people are sleeping a little bit on the Eagles this year. And last year, it was just one of those things. They were so elite, and then the wheels just fell off. And I think Sirianni will learn from that, and I think they're going to be in a better position. Next team, we are going to America's team. We're going down under. We are talking the Dallas Cowboys, 19-1 to win the Super Bowl, win the NFC 7-1, NFC East plus 170, make the playoffs. Yes, minus 210 to not make the playoffs, plus 170, over under 10.5. What say you about America's team?
Yeah, man. I think they're going to take a small step back from last year. They're obviously probably still going to be pretty good. Um, I think losing Tony Pollard, Tyron Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, Stephon Gilmore, Dante Fowler Jr., even though I don't think he really did too much. Armstrong on the edge. I just think they lost quite a bit of veterans, and maybe that's good for them. I don't know. We'll see. But I think they lost a lot. Their biggest issue, I believe, right now is their defensive line. They lost quite a few guys actually to the Commanders. Quinn sneakily stole some players from the house when he left, some of their free agent guys. So that was pretty smart by them. So I think their defensive line is going to be in question. I'm not sure who's really going to be there to help DeMarcus Lawrence. They drafted this Nealon guy, linebacker, to maybe help Parsons a little bit. Their secondary is supposed to be good, but they just lost Bland, so I think that's going to be a huge loss for them. He made a lot of big plays for them last year. Obviously, I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate all those interceptions. But either way, he's pretty talented. But he's going to be a big loss for them. On the offensive side, they losing Tyron Smith. They've drafted Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton to replace offensive line to get those young guys in there to try to compete for some spots. Their issue is their running backs. It looks like Ezekiel Elliott and Royce Freeman are going to be their two running backs, and then they didn't really add any other skill positions. So I kind of question who they're going to go to behind Lamb and Cooks, and if it's hurt, they really don't have too much depth there as far as firepower goes. So I think everything's really going to have to fall in place for the Cowboys this year. Everything's going to have to go right. They're going to have to avoid injuries because I just don't know what they're going to do in the running game. Ezekiel Elliott's going to average less than 2 yards per carry. You can bookmark that right now. He's got nothing left. So I'm pretty down on them. They're obviously still going to win probably 10-plus games. Maybe bringing in Eric Kendricks, linebacker, is going to help solidify the middle of the field a little bit. But he's obviously like 50 years old, so I just don't know what he's even going to be able to bring to them anymore. I'm a Vikings fan, obviously, and he was on our team for a long time. He was a beast with us. I just don't know what he has left. So I don't know. They didn't really do too much in the offseason that really sparked me and thought, oh man, they're gonna do great. Obviously, signing CeeDee Lamb's a big deal, but he hasn't been there all offseason, so it's gonna take them, 2, 3, 4 games to really get on track, get their rhythm and timing going. He'll probably tear up the league again. But I've got no plays on the Cowboys this year. They're hard for me to predict how they're gonna do. I just think everything's got to fall in place for them to have a good year, man. I could be totally wrong.
One thing Jerry Jones has done throughout his tenure is he's done a great job of building an offensive line. And this season, there are a million questions around the offensive line. You mentioned it. They lost Smith at left tackle. They have a rookie coming in to replace him. Steele on the opposite side. Martin is a year older. Hoffman is a new center. There is a ton of questions around the team this year. Everyone was amazed at the production of Dak and CD last year, but that's because that's what the offense is. This offense is designed pass a ton, take a ton of deep shots down the field, hence the production of the two. The issue is who's the number two? Obviously, Michael Gallup is gone. Injury-ridden last year, really couldn't get anything going. Cooks underachieved. They're going to need someone to emerge to be the wide receiver two to loosen up coverage on Lamb. The rushing game was brutal last season compared to recent years. They brought in Solar to be the new offensive line coach, switched to an inside zone running scheme. But the issue was Tony Pollard's way too small to do an inside running scheme. They obviously lost him to the Titans. They brought Ezekiel Elliott back, but you hit the nail on the head. He's 29 years old, and this offensive line is going to be a lot worse. They were 14th in rushing yards last season. I think that number is going to dip this year. This could be one of the worst rushing teams in the league.
I think they'll finish bottom 10. I think they'll finish 20 or below.
Rumors are Dalvin Cook is coming out of retirement from Let's Make Some Money on Twitch.
That would be a better move than Ezekiel Elliott.
That'd be but he hasn't been in camp. We really don't know what to expect from him. You know what I mean?
I get it.
Cool Cow Dallas out in the second round again.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. If you can make a bet on that, if that was big odds, I maybe sprinkle on Cowboys to lose in the second round.
Mary wants Trey Lance to start.
He is so awful. Didn't he just have like 5 interceptions last game?
He is. I think this offense is going to struggle. I really feel like this offense is going to struggle because of the Lions' inability to set the table for Dak and protect him or create some running lanes for Elliott. Quinn leaving this defense, I think it's a huge. Dallas is going to, instead of playing a 4-3 defense, they're going to play a 4-2-5. We'll blitz more. They'll also be more focused on stopping the run. The key is the middle of the defense. They used a high draft pick on Smith from Michigan, who has failed to live up to the first round pick they used on him. They need him to step up.
Yeah.
They're going to be doing a lot of press man coverage. But when we look at their safeties, they really can't play press man. And also, you mentioned they lost Gilmore. People are going to hate me for saying this. Gilmore was their best man coverage guy.
Yes, he was.
So I feel that is a huge blow. How is Diggs going to look? He's been insanely productive in this zone coverage defense, but he takes a lot of chances. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be able to play man? I think he's going to get burnt a lot. When Bland comes back, the same thing. Both those guys take a lot of chances in the zone defense. With how Quinn played, you were allowed to do that. Not in this man defense. I think the defense takes a step back. I think the offense takes a step back. I think they have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I bet the Dallas Cowboys plus 170 to not make the playoffs.
Okay.
I think they're out. Cool, Kev. Trade Micah when you get some value. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can't pay everybody. You're going to have to make some cuts and get some. And I mean, it with them paying CD, I think they're going to end up playing Dak, which I think is a mistake. And they're going to obviously, probably have to trade Micah. Oh, cool, Kev. Cool.
Yeah,
Kev.
Honestly, I was actually surprised on your take on Cowboys. I actually thought you were going to go the opposite way, so that surprised me a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know Gilmore. I'm not saying Gilmore's like the best cornerback. I just think him being there, he's like one of the most experienced cornerbacks, and he's obviously very good. It's the playoffs is the end of the season. I mean, he's old. I know there's games where he really shined. He's not at that age where he can put it together for an entire full season. But I've always been a really big believer in him. He's super good.
And also, all these people have strengths. They have weaknesses. Yeah. Gilmore is just better in man coverage than those other two. Bland and Diggs are elite in zone coverage. They're able to take more chances. They aren't going to be disciplined enough to play in man coverage. I think that's going to lead to them bleeding production. And for as much shit as let's just play what if. Falcons win the Super Bowl. Where is Dan Quinn right now?
No chance.
But I'm just, dude, they were up. They were up in that game. That loss against the Patriots was all on Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, for sure.
And how he did it. So I am saying that if they win that game.
But doesn't Quinn have the right to override?
Not how they had it set up. It was Quinn was like, this is me, this is you. It was two separate things.
That's his mistake, man. You can't do that. Especially in those crucial moments, man, you got to know. Yeah, I agree. Gilmore is probably more rotation, for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100% with it. 100%. Yeah.
So do you think the Cowboys, where do you think they're going to end on the win total? I don't remember what their total wins was, their line was. I'm assuming it was 11.5.
I got them at 8. Their win total was at 10.5. I have them at 8.
10.5, okay. You don't think they're getting 10 wins?
No.
Eric.
Dude, come on, man. Come on, dude.
You think they're going to take that big of a step back? I mean, I definitely think they're going to take a step back. They're definitely not going to be as good. There's no way, no chance. If they are, I will be so shocked.
Okay,
You think they're going to fall back to 8 wins?
Also, let's look at their schedule last year, man.
What does that put them at, 8 and 9?
They won't
go 8 and 9, dude.
Look at their schedule last year, okay? Who'd they beat?
Well,
I mean,
I'm looking at it. I hear you.
I mean,
I mean, I'm just.
they
I don't know. It's tough, man. They were so explosive last year.
I mean, they lost to the Lions. Lions got jobbed in that game. They lost to the Dolphins. Anyone that's good who they played, they absolutely got smoked. This year, let's look at their schedule. They play the Browns.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean,
Browns have Garrett and Smith. They're going to eat this offensive line. Then you play New Orleans. New Orleans is going to basically be San Francisco East now.
I don't know about that.
Well, they're going to be running the offense, though. They're going to be running the zone offense. And if Smith can't stop the offensive, can't stop the run game, can't plug up the middle, they're going to be able to run the ball. Then you play Baltimore. Baltimore's Baltimore. Then fine. They beat the Giants.
They're going to beat the Steelers.
Okay, you beat the Steelers. You lose to Detroit. You lose to San Francisco. Falcons, 50-50. Lose to Philadelphia. Houston, 50-50. You lose to the Bengals. I'm telling you, man, like this is a tough schedule, man.
Oh, it's tough. There's no argument, but I think they can rip off like Tampa Bay and Carolina. They can beat Washington twice. They can beat the Giants twice. I mean, right there, what is that? That's 7. Probably get the Falcons. Pittsburgh's going to be tough. Pittsburgh's defense is going to be awesome. It's going to be all dependent on that quarterback situation. So I don't know really how to read them.
I got them at 8-9. 8-9.
Yeah.
So
you might be right, man. Maybe that under 10.5 is a better look than I thought.
And I mean, I get it, dude. Dak has always performed well when he needs to get paid. Nothing motivates people more than money.
I don't know.
But if he doesn't have time.
Oh, I 100%. Their offensive line has all the questions in the world.
And I mean, also you need to remember, we just talked about how good the Giants' defensive line is. They can't block the Giants.
Dude, the Giants have a 3-headed monster that like nobody's talking about on the defensive line. I know that's not going to win you all the games, but that's going to disrupt some stuff.
And they play on a Thursday night, and historically speaking, teams on short rest on the road don't do well on Thursday nights. Yeah. If you were to tell me going into week 7, the bye week, this team was 1-5, 0-6, I could completely believe it. If they're 3-3 going into the bye, I think that this is a win for them. I think it's an absolute win for them if they're 3-3 going into the bye.
I agree with that.
That's a very good analysis there. Yeah, because that right before that bye week is it's tough, and then they come out of the gates after the bye week, and they really have 4 really tough games. It's shoot, man, their season could be over quick if they don't get things right. I can't believe Lamb and all that they should have looked at their schedule and they should have had everybody ready, man. They can't mess around with this schedule.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, like they're not going to make the playoffs. I would be shocked if they made the playoffs.
I know this isn't on topic, but how do you feel about Deshaun Watson's outlook this year? You think he's just going to be fine? You think he's going to be a little bit back to normal? You think he's going to be as bad as?
So here is my hot take from last week's show.
I was in California, by the way, last week on vacation, so I did not watch your show.
All right, this is my hot take. If Deshaun Watson is half of what he was in 2020, the Browns are a serious Super Bowl contender.
Okay.
But he hasn't shown us that, and he hasn't been practicing.
I know.
You know what I mean? So when you look at what the Browns have, like if you put Dak Prescott on the Browns, I think the Browns could win the Super Bowl. Good offensive line, solid running game. Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, solid defense.
Well, I was just asking because of that first game. If Watson doesn't really perform well, they don't have Chubbs out for.
But Jerome Ford is just as good, man. Like when you look at what Ford did.
Yeah, but you don't think the Cowboys defense will be able to stop that action a little bit? I think it's going to be a pretty close game.
They struggled against the run last year.
Mm-hmm.
and like
Yeah.
I feel a game like this comes down to who do you give the advantage to? Cowboys offensive line against the Browns defensive line. Who do you give the advantage to?
Well, Browns.
Browns offensive line against the Cowboys defensive line. Who do you give the advantage to?
I do give the advantage to the Browns, but what do they have to do with it behind the offensive line? You got to have something.
They can just turn. If they can't stop the run, you just turn around, hand it to Ford. And this team made the playoffs with Joe Flacco coming off the couch last year. 41-year-old Joe Flacco was on his couch eating Subway, rolled up.
Yeah, I guess I really think that Chubb hits bigger than maybe bigger impact than maybe it really is.
I mean, I think Stefanski is just showing us like whoever my old fat ass could probably run for 95 yards a game in that running scheme, dude. I probably break my ankle in game 2. But
yeah, the Vikings really screwed that up by letting him go, man.
Yeah, that was a big mistake, man, because he's been
like him a lot.
Absolutely money. Wade, I'd like to thank you for coming on, talking a little NFL, previewing the NFC East. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you guys can just come check me out at Wade's Bets on all of the platforms. I even have a little YouTube channel at Top Flight Picks. We just mainly do baseball stuff over there right now. But yeah, come check us out on X is where I do mainly most of my stuff. I put out free picks every day. Come check out my VIP if you want 7-day free trial. Yeah, link in bio. Thanks, man. Appreciate always joining doing these things, man. It's always a good time.
Enjoy coming you on. Those who don't know, Wade is always on my podcast talking some UFC. I was doing some traveling, so I've been out of town. Yeah. Hopefully we'll start that back up.
Hey, baby, we swept last week, 5-0.
It's 5-0, dude.
Where were you at?
Where was I at with the UFC? Dude, I
know you were up there, but did you bet anything at all? Did you wait?
I did one bet, and I did Ricci Hill would end a split or majority decision. And I feel I got robbed in that one. I legitimately feel you could be. There's no way that should have been a majority card. So
it was close.
I'm going to say this: I'm officially done betting those bets. So I've lost the last 2. I've officially
have you?
I won my first 3. Now I'm walking away, man. Make sure to check that out. Wade's on my podcast. Anytime there's a UFC card, make sure to give him a follow. Check out his Discord. Check out his MLB show that comes out Friday and what other day?
We're kind of actually doing it almost every day now. So, but now that football's coming on, we're going to start working some football stuff in. So it's probably more Tuesdays and Wednesdays baseball show.
Make sure to check that out. And then also make sure to check out the Etoft21sports show next week. My boy Reed is coming on. We're going to be giving you all the bets to make for week 1. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week.